Wisconsin is a state that holds some of the most iconic sports teams of all time. The Green Bay Packers took home the first ever Super Bowl trophy, and their legacy was immortalized as Vince Lombardi would eventually get the trophy named after him. Since then, a host of iconic quarterbacks have led their teams to Super Bowl championships and have no doubt been one of the most successful NFL franchises of all time. Keeping up that same level of excellence, the Milwaukee Bucks have won 2 championships of their own and have been one of the most premier teams in the NBA in today's era. Over the decades of the team's inception, they've had equally legendary players wear their letters and colors. Lew Alcindor was a gift of fate to the Milwaukee Bucks, as they won him in a coin toss with the Phoenix Suns for the rights to draft the number 1 pick in the 1969 season. While his name might not sound familiar now, he would eventually change his name to Kareem-Abdul Jabbar and make his mark as one of the greatest players to ever touch a basketball. He would bring Milwaukee their first championship in 1971, but he wouldn't do it alone. The Big O, Oscar Robertson, put up incredible numbers on the Cincinati Royals, becoming the first player ever to average a triple-double for the entire regular season. But with limited success in the postseason and head coach Cousey just straight up not liking him, he would be traded to the Milwaukee Bucks to team up with Alcindor. They would immediately become the best team in the league, winning 66 games and winning the finals in a sweep. Even though he only played 4 years for the club, his impact was integral to the city winning their first championship. And almost 50 years later, they would get a player of similar caliber and do the exact same thing. Giannis Antetokounmpo was mostly an unknown player out of Greece. Little did we know he would develop into one of the best players in the league, a 2-time MVP and winning Milwaukee their second championship in franchise history. But between Kareem, Robinson, and Antetokounmpo, there are a host of other Milwaukee Bucks who have made their mark on the franchise as well. So let's find out who is the greatest Milwaukee Buck of all time. What's up everybody, it's your boy 2KJ here, and today we're back for the 4th episode of Case for Franchise GO.A.T. Today we'll be looking through the history of outstanding players who have taken up the mantle of the Milwaukee Bucks, but this time with a little bit of a different approach. If you like the content, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring that bell, and put who you want in the next video down below. But let's get down to business. In the previous episode, I've made a point to add honorable mentions of players who I feel like deserve recognition for their achievements to the franchise. And this time, I'm doing the same, but in more of a GOAT pyramid style. For those who haven't seen the Jimmy video, a GOAT pyramid ranks players on how close they would be to being the greatest of all time. In the last tier, we have players who are fan favorites of the franchise, and while put up excellent numbers, maybe had their best years on other teams. From right to left, we have Vin Baker, Chris Middleton, Michael Redd, and Ray Allen. In the second tier, we have all-time guys for the Bucks, players who are integral to winning their first championship in 1971, or guys who were the leaders of their own Buck squads during the times in the post-Kareem era. We have Oscar Robertson, Sidney Moncrief, Bob Dandridge, and Marcus Johnson. Now in the last tier, we have players that could be considered to be the GOAT for the franchise. And unsurprisingly, at the top, we have the 2 players who led their teams to the promised land, Kareem-Abdul Jabbar and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Now, let's get down to the bottom of how I got here, and for starters, we're going to start from the bottom and work our way up. The first guy I want to talk about is Vin Baker. Drafted to the Bucks with the 8th overall pick in the 1993 NBA draft, Baker would be a fan favorite for the franchise, making 3 All-Star games for the Bucks, and even though he only played 4 years for the franchise and didn't even make the playoffs, is still seen as an iconic young player for the franchise. I actually wasn't going to add him at first, but a friend who's a Bucks fan was adamant that Baker was an important part of the Bucks culture during the time. And talking to a couple of other fans, they have reciprocated this exact same sentiment. Next on that same line is Chris Middleton. And I'm sure a lot of people are shocked to have him here and not in the second tier, but this is where I want to make a point to differentiate between what makes a player an all-time player in my eyes and someone who's great but more of a fan favorite. Chris Middleton has 3 All-Star selections, yes, and was drafted to the Bucks with a 39th pick in the second round, so he is a lifelong Buck. But he has no All-NBA selections and no other awards aside from being a second option on the championship-winning team. And while All-Star appearances are important, they're not indicative to how good a basketball player is in terms of success. Chris Middleton's impact can't be understated though, as he is one of the major reasons that the Bucks won the chip, but I do feel like he's a step behind some of the higher tier guys in terms of his ability to lead an offense and in his ability to be a first option. Another similar guy to this is Michael Redd, who's an unbelievable scorer for the Bucks and helped put fans in seats during the era when they most likely would have really not done much if they traded Ray Allen. Another pretty much lifelong Buck, Red would play 10 seasons for the franchise and 11 NBA seasons total, and is an all-star and all-NBA appearance to his name. Even though Red never got far in the playoffs, never making it past the first round, he still is a Bucks icon for sure. Lastly, we have easily the best player on this list, and that's Ray Allen, well, in this tier. A highly touted guard out of UConn, Allen was drafted with the 5th overall pick for the Timberwolves, but he was flipped that day to the Bucks for the rights to the 4th pick, Stephon Marbury. The Bucks would easily win this trade, as Allen would elevate the squad with his elite scoring package and all-time three-point shooting ability to get the Bucks into the Eastern Conference Finals in 2001. Validity of this series aside, he would have an outstanding career for Milwaukee, but have his most iconic moments and best seasons on other teams. For that reason, I feel like he's on the fringe between Tier 3 and Tier 2, but I'm ultimately going to put him in Tier 3 because he didn't have his best seasons on the Milwaukee Bucks. Next up is the players on Tier 2. These are guys what I consider to be all-time players for the Milwaukee Bucks. Not only are 3 out of the 4 of these players in the Hall of Fame, Marques Johnson should be in the Hall of Fame, it should be 4 out of 4, but every single one of them has their number retired for the franchise. So these players are on an entirely different class of their own compared to the Tier 3 guys. To start off, let's talk about the Big O and Oscar Robertson. Most people know Robertson is the original triple-double machine, the first player to ever average triple-double for a season. Robertson was just more than that though. He was a Tier 1 NBA player in his time and is widely regarded as one of the all-time greats in the game and one of the most prolific scorers to ever touch a basketball. He averaged 30 points a game as a rookie. That is unreal. He also did it again his sophomore season. And after butting heads with Coach Bob Cousey, he was traded to the Milwaukee Bucks in a move that pretty much perplexed all of the NBA because Oscar Robertson was pretty much one of the, if not the best player in the league during his time, and he just traded him because Cousey just didn't like him. But little did Cousey know, he would be creating a monster. The Bucks were a solid team before getting Robertson, winning 56 games and losing them in the division finals. But after adding one of the best players in the league, they would pretty much become unstoppable. The 1-2 punch of Abdul Jabbar and Robertson was basically unguardable and helped them win 66 games, 14 higher than the next team, and leading them to a 12-2 record in the playoffs, including a 4-game sweep to win the finals. Funnily enough, when Oscar Robertson retired, it's very, very widely stated that Robertson's play on that team was a major factor in them being one of the best teams in the league. And when he retired in 1979, the year after, the Bucks were not only last in their division, but also missed the playoffs. So if that doesn't show his impact on that squad, I don't really know what does. The next 2 players I want to talk about are sort of a package deal, which is why I'm going to talk about them together. Mostly because they formed to create the dynamic duo of the post-Kareem era and worked in helping keep the Bucks as a perennial playoff team for an entire decade. Out of the gate, Marques Johnson meant business. Drafted 3rd overall to UCLA in the 1977 NBA draft, he would start off his career by scoring 19.5 points per game and 10.6 rebounds as a rookie, and instantly upping it to 25.6 points per game and 7.6 rebounds in his second season. Johnson is one of the many NBA players that I'd describe as the type of guy to be your favorite player's favorite player. He was a prolific scorer and the prototype for a lot of the point forward shooting guards you see in today's NBA. He would eventually team up with another Milwaukee legend in the 5th pick in the 1979 NBA draft, Sidney Moncrief. Moncrief is another player that I'd describe as your favorite player's favorite player because not only was he a scoring threat and put over 20 points per game up in his prime, he was also a 5-time All-Defensive selection and won 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards in back-to-back years. He was an integral part of the Bucks for his 10 years wearing the green and red. With Johnson as his partner, they would go to 5 straight playoffs and back-to-back Eastern Conference Finals in 1983 and 1984. They were both 5-time All-Stars and multiple-time All-NBA players, but unfortunately were stopped by the eventual Finals champs in both seasons, losing to the Sixers and the Celtics respectively. But due to their prolonged success with their franchise and being the stars of the post-Kareem era, giving hope to a team that didn't really have much after losing literally the best player in the NBA, they both land here in the second tier because they did an incredible job and are all-time players in their own right. Last but certainly not least is Bob Dandridge, and this is a player you very likely would not know about unless you've either done your research or are an old head, but I added him on this list for a very, very specific reason. Dandridge was drafted with the 45th pick in the second round of the NBA draft, and he's the kind of player that almost gets forgotten by history. He played 9 seasons with Milwaukee, making 3 All-Star appearances and being an important piece in the championship-winning squad. He was a more than capable scorer on the offensive end, but his defense helped him become an icon for the team in the 70s. He would go on to score the most points out of any player in the 4 finals he would play in during his career in the 70s, but these instrumental years as a Milwaukee Buck never faded. So he would get his jersey, retire for the team, and be enshrined in the NBA Hall of Fame in 2021. Now, I know what you're thinking. His numbers kind of sound similar to Khris Middleton. So why did I put him in here? Well, 2 very important things. His jersey being retired is important, yes, but the fact that he's in the NBA Hall of Fame instantly puts him on a different level than 99% of basketball players who have ever played in the league. Dandridge making the NBA Hall of Fame is very important because I feel like that means that his impact and that his importance to his league wasn't just with the Milwaukee Bucks, but with the other teams he played as well. But Dandridge is an all-time great. That's what that means to be in the NBA Hall of Fame. You are an all-time great. That is a player who was integral to winning their championship, integral to their team's success, and is integral to the city of Milwaukee. Not to say that Khris Middleton isn't there yet, but I do think at the end of his career, he could possibly move up to being an all-time Tier 2 player. Now, on the final frontier, we have the 2 players who I think are in contention for the title of franchise GOAT. Both of these players are synonymous with the greatness that comes from leading a franchise to a championship, while both being multiple-time MVP winners as well. When Lew Alcindor finished off his college career by winning his 3rd straight NCAA championship and 3rd straight Player of the Year award, he was touted as a legacy-defining player. Not a franchise-defining player, a legacy-defining player. The type of guy that could take any team from bottom feeder to instant championship contender. When the Milwaukee Bucks won the coin toss versus the Phoenix Suns for the rights to draft him, they knew they were getting a legend in the making. In only his 2nd season with the franchise, he would win his first MVP award, putting up an unreal stat line of 31.7 points per game and 16 rebounds in only his 2nd season, by the way, in the NBA. He would also sweep the Baltimore Bullets to capture his first of many NBA championships. In large part due to his iconic skyhook, Kareem would be virtually unguardable in those years, averaging 30.4 points per game and 15.3 rebounds in his 6 years playing for Milwaukee. In that time, he would make 2 finals appearances, win 1, become the all-time leading scorer for the franchise, win 3 MVPs in addition to a host of other awards and accolades, and would eventually ask out in a trade in 1975 and continue to build his legacy with what we know it as his top 3 player of all time on the Los Angeles Lakers. But his impact on Milwaukee basketball was unreal. The franchise was only 2 years old before it got Kareem, then won a championship the next year. Beating him out for the top spot as the franchise GOAT is a tall task, but if anybody can do it, then it is 100% the Greek Freak. Giannis Antetokounmpo's rise in the NBA was nothing like Kareem's. As a matter of fact, it was pretty much the complete opposite. A widely unknown prospect out of Greece, Giannis was drafted with the 15th pick in the 2013 NBA draft. He was seen as the type of guy who could have a lot of upside, as he had that raw potential you love to see out of European prospects. First 3 seasons saw him steadily improve, going from 6.8 points per game as a rookie to 16.9 points per game by his 3rd year in the league. His 4th year, though, he would make the jump to becoming an all-star, leading the Bucks to the playoffs while averaging 22.9 points per game and 7.7 rebounds. The next year, though, these numbers would increase again. Team scored 26.9 points per game and 10 rebounds, while leading the Bucks to back-to-back playoff appearances for the first time since 2004. That season, it looked like Giannis was turning a corner not only into just becoming one of the best players in the league, but becoming the best player in the league. In the next 2 years, he would prove that by winning back-to-back MVPs and a Defensive Player of the Year award in 2020. He continued the same level of dominance during his NBA Finals run, where he clinched the title with a 50-point masterclass that earned him his first MVP Finals award. While they haven't made it back to the Eastern Conference Finals since, Giannis has still remained as arguably the best player in the league during this span, collecting 7 All-Star and All-NBA nods, along with being a 5-time All-Defensive selection as well. Now that we have both legends outlined though, let's compare their stats and see how they stack up against each other. At first glance, it looks like Giannis has this one pretty much in the bag, playing 4 more seasons with Kareem and taking the mantle of all-time leading scorer from him as well. He nearly edges him out in all NBA first team selections and all defensive selections as well, but falls behind slightly in MVPs and in win shares. I do want to make a point to explain why I opted to use win shares this time instead of VORP, and it's mainly because VORP wasn't actually tracked in Kareem's first couple of years, so it's a bit skewed stat-wise, so I felt like I'd just use win shares as well, because it's a pretty easy metric to understand. Basically, it talks about how many more wins a player has generated over their career. Win shares, amount of wins they have generated over their career. Pretty easy to understand. Now, the next point I want to make about win shares is sort of to make this whole argument make sense. So, the greatest player in a franchise to me is a player that epitomizes the franchise. A player that when you think of the Milwaukee Bucks, you think of that player. Overall, I think that Kareem is the better player out of the two by far. His accolades stand up incredibly well against Giannis, and he only played 6 years for the team, generating 18.2 win shares more as well. Genuinely, the only reason why I struggle with putting him as the franchise GOAT is because his legacy was idolized with the Los Angeles Lakers and not the Milwaukee Bucks. When people think of Kareem, they think of the Lakers. They don't think of the Bucks. But when people think of Giannis, they think about the Bucks. And that is really one of the most important things when you're talking about a franchise GOAT. You want someone who is the epitome of the franchise, and I honestly feel like Giannis might play his entire career there, and if he does, when people think of the Bucks, they will 100% think of Giannis. But it can honestly go either way, and that's why we're going to leave it down to a vote again. Make sure to vote in this week's poll. Go to the community tab on my YouTube page. You should be able to find the new poll, and we're going to put what you guys think who should be the franchise GOAT. I personally want to go with Giannis. I think it's very, very, very close. I think Kareem is the better player, but overall, when I think of the Bucks, I think of Giannis, and that could just be bias as in he is in my generation of players. But when I think of Kareem, I think of the Lakers, and I feel like it'd be doing a disservice to the Bucks to put him as the franchise GOAT when I think Giannis has maybe made a bigger impact on me. So put what you guys think down in the comment section below. Make sure to go to the community tab and check the poll and put what you think, and put who you want as the next team on the next episode of the franchise GOAT down in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and thank you guys for watching this week's episode of Case for Franchise GOAT. If you like the content, thank you for watching. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.